giving things away, but rather think about means by which to give people a leg up to self-determine their own economic future. Bushproof was the organization that we worked with in Madagascar, an award-winning humanitarian enterprise that was started by a gentleman of Dutch background and another of English background. And the picture's a little hard to see, but there's a PVC hand pump that they developed and had been working with a number of aid agencies as emergency response to drop into a location and install these water wells to provide access to clean water for people whose access to water had been upset by a natural disaster. And they had left the aid business, being directly involved with aid, and established a for-profit company to manufacture these pumps and to install these pumps. And our task as a project team was to work with them, understand their business model, provide perspective, and we were able to provide a number of perspectives that seemed to us to be very, very common sense, basic business strategies, but we were applying them to people who had not had sort of the formal business education or formal business experience, and we had to provide them some basic perspective on blocking and tackling, managing their stakeholders and understanding them, driving down the cost of the pump to make it more affordable, considering means by which to use microcredit to allow people to be able to afford the pumps. So that was the organization that we worked with and provided perspective to in the course of our visit there. Here's the slide of our team Madagascar. On the left-hand side, Stefan Rabsamen is a partner in our Zurich office who's been in the audit practice about 15 years or so. In the middle, Ronnie Sakura Johns, who is a partner in our Kuala Lumpur office in our tax area, and myself. And the experience of spending 8 weeks together with someone who started out as a perfect stranger was really terrific for us to learn about each other, to learn about Madagascar, to learn about how we could work together to improve the connectedness of our organization. And frankly, over the course of working together for 8 weeks, we also got tired of each other once in a while. You know, we learned a lot about our cultures. You had the loud American, you had the independent Swiss, and you had an opinionated Malaysian woman. And frankly, Ronnie and I would often sort of get at different ends of the spectrum, and would have to sort it out and understand the perspective that we brought to the table. One experience we had in particular, we met with an entrepreneur there who was developing technology for the poor, and he was going to come to visit us at the hotel that we were staying at, and we were thinking about how we would structure this meeting. And I said, well, first thing we should do is offer this guy tea as a note of hospitality to sit down with him and share with him. And Ronnie immediately said, no way, that's schmoozing him. We talked about this American word that we use, and maybe it's a Yiddish word called schmoozing, but she thought it was distasteful that we would open a meeting with someone that we just met with the sharing of tea. And it bugged me that she just shut me down absolutely like that, but I shut up. And part of the team experience was we were all being very polite to each other. You know, we didn't want to, we may bother each other, but we didn't necessarily react to it. So the social entrepreneur comes to the hotel, and the first thing we did, we greeted him, and I said, well, would you like to join us for tea? And he immediately declined. He said, no, thank you. So I said, we had our meeting. We got to know each other. We covered business, and then we got to know each other a bit personally. And sort of at the end of the closing of the meeting, Ronnie said, would you like to join us for a cup of tea? And he said, absolutely. So I learned there, about that. I observed that, and then later that day, we had a little time, and this whole Ulysses process is designed to learn about each other and challenge each other and develop your understanding of culture. So I said, okay, Ronnie, that sort of irked me that you shut me down and said, let's not have tea with that guy. but it also sort of surprised me that later he accepted that. And at that point, Ronnie explained to me her perspective as an Asian working with another Asian, how she thought the interaction would be better staged to sort of deal with the business and then deal with the personal at the back end. But the big takeaway for myself from that interaction was I think we in the United States sometimes adopt this policy called don't ask, don't tell, right? We leave politics and religion and stuff like that undiscussed. But my takeaway from that experience was ask and tell. We need to, if there's differences that we don't understand, there's a real opportunity for us to break away, to gain more cultural understanding, to build a more sustainable practice if we spend time to ask and tell and understand what the differences are that are between us. So that was a sort of a challenging day, but an interesting finding that day. And Ryan and I stay in contact about the tea ceremony every once in a while. Another perspective that I would share are just sort of pictures of what the resources were that we observed. And I think when you look to enter a developing country, you need to have your eyes open about where the resources are. In the lower left-hand corner, while there's extreme poverty in Madagascar and there aren't a lot of resources around, people are resourceful. And the little oil lamps that were created in that lower left-hand picture were basically recycled light bulbs that were built on a little metal stand that was clipped out of a condensed milk can. So we got recycled light bulbs and recycled milk cans that are used to put something to new service. So we observed that the Malagasy people, while poor in resources, are resourceful. In the upper left-hand corner shows the workshop that Bushproof had put together, where they're employing local Malagasy people, teaching them skills around manufacturing of these pumps, giving them employment, making them future customers for pumps that Bushproof may sell. And while Bushproof previously had pumps manufactured outside of the country and imported them, while they previously then they started this local shop of manufacture. They're working heavily on reducing expensive exported goods and substituting them with local product and with local capability. The upper right-hand picture is just a picture of the enthusiasm and the resource base that's available in Madagascar, and it implies to us that there's opportunity to develop a sustainable operation. We, PricewaterhouseCoopers, have an operation in Madagascar as well, about 25 people who are there, who are hired, trained, and built and brought into the quality network of PricewaterhouseCoopers. The last picture I would offer in the lower right-hand corner shows Stefan and Ronnie and myself, the core Madagascar team, but another aspect of the Ulysses program is to pair with our teams experienced executive coaches. The fourth guy in the picture is a guy named Jeroen Drontman, who is a gentleman of Dutch background, who came in and worked with our team and helped us to understand that we were being too democratic and we were getting along with each other and we weren't breaking down the tasks into the things that we were most interested in or most skilled at. And he had a lot of help, provided a lot of help to us to learn. And I think the message there is, don't be afraid to take some outside expertise to bring it into the mix to help you learn about sustainability, leadership, and diversity. And I'll tell you, adding, if we didn't already have Swiss and American and Malaysian to the mix, when you add Dutch to the mix, it added another interesting dimension to the meals that we shared and the heady conversations that we discussed when discussing water development in Madagascar. Last slide just has a microsite that we have on our website for Ulysses if you're interested in learning more about that program. My personal blog spot, which was my photos and my journal from the journey, are at hellworth.blogspot.com. It is not highly produced at all, but if you're interested in some more sort of funny pictures of Madagascar, you can find those there. And my email address is attached if you'd like to contact me via email. Thank you.
This is the point at which we have freed up sufficient time for interaction. The plan was for you to listen to different perspectives. So I think we have two ways that you could ask questions. One is there should be a few microphones that all you need to do is raise your hand. They'll be brought to you. The second option is for you to write a question on a sheet of paper, and I'll read it out for you. So those are the two options. So I'll give you a few minutes to just raise your hand to ask a question. And while you're doing that, of course, one of the things we do as professors is write down questions. So just in case you're taking your time forming the question. One of the interesting things in all three presentations was the role of credit. So my question is this a role that companies have had to play because existing banks are unable to assess credit worthiness of the small farmers or the house builders? And so do you expect this will disappear as formal credit markets appear? Or do you expect that this is something you'll have to continue to do as a company? Anyone?
I'll start on that. We started actually, I think it was in 1998, providing guarantees for loans so that an organization could actually attract angel investors. It's not a lack of money; it's a lack of it's too much risk. That's what's holding back the credit. So in our case, we found that it was just easier for us to take the risk ourselves. And when people are lending on our behalf, they're lending against contracts that have been written. So even though farmers don't have collateral, that contract becomes the collateral. And we're not talking microcredit here, $100 or $10 loans. These are loans that go to cooperatives that then on-lend to their members so that, in fact, the farmers will deliver the coffee to the cooperatives who will then sell it to us. The repayment rates are very good, although there's never any guarantees. What we're moving into now is, and we've found that when farmers now have credit histories by doing this, then local banks are more willing to lend. So at least in Mexico, where we've been doing this for more years, farmers are actually able to deal with the commercial institutions. We're actually in talks right now with the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank, where they will help subsidize risk for commercial banks in country who will then on-lend. And this would be the next step to this. But it's always, it's the issue of risk. They're plenty liquid, but at least in the environment that we operate in, the banks are not interested in owning any more coffee farms. They have plenty of those already, unfortunately. And so how do you get organizations to help manage the risk so that people will lend? And that's the big barrier that we've found.
Thank you, Sue. Same reasons. And for the building process, what we found at the beginning is that we didn't see the banking sector developing solution for these people. The poorest people don't offer guarantees. They only have, as I said before, social capital. And that is not a guarantee for the banking sector, the formal banking sector. But from 5 years to now in Mexico, very specific, the formal banking sector are entering to these communities. They are growing quickly. In fact, they are our main competitors for this for our program, not the other cement producers or building materials, the retailers. It's the credit that the institutions that are offering credits, our main competitors, and it is a growing fast industry right now in Mexico. But what we've found in this segment of the population is that they are very good credit customers, also for us. In fact, we are representing a bank institution for them. They are saving with us around 40% of their, as a prepaid, for the materials. The people saves with us more than $12 million. And they are expecting that we deliver in a period of time when they have enough cash or time to build, because this is a self-building process. So credit, we found that credit was a key component of our program because nobody was offering to them in order to have a solution for the problem, and also not only for accessing for financing, but also for to having a place or a system or a safe method for saving also.
Access to credit was certainly an issue that we observed in Madagascar, and one of the guidelines that the firm provides to all the participants in Ulysses before you go into the country is realize you're only going to be there 8 weeks, and manage the scope of your project, because you're going to observe all kinds of things that you want to dig into or understand further. Credit being one of them. But in this program that I experienced, you got to manage scope and not dig into it. But it was certainly an issue in Madagascar. The United States, through our Millennium Capital Corporation, are actually investing in building the infrastructure to improve the ability to lend there, to be able to secure collateral, to establish that basis. The existing institution that we observed was run on a cooperative basis as sort of a mutual savings and lending organization, and it seemed to be working in the rural areas and providing a baseline of credit, but obviously there was still a long way to go, particularly for the very small operators. Madagascar's chief exports are vanilla beans and coffee, and those very small family operators were still, who basically did not have access to affordable credit. There was always someone in the village who would lend at an extortionate rate, but affordable credit was very hard to get.
Okay. Any questions?
I was wondering if any of you could comment on the initiatives that you've taken for your companies, what influence that's had with either your competitors or maybe in the industry, and kind of raising the bar in the areas that you described.
I would say that as I talked a little bit about leadership, and one of the things when the fair trade movement was starting in the United States, it was very important to them to get Starbucks on board. They felt that would open the door to really growth, and we were the first large company to start selling fair trade coffee, and it's the U.S. market is now the leader in the world in terms of fair trade. So we see that what we do often is imitated. With cafe practices, our buying guidelines, they are really rigorous, and we didn't protect them in any way from an intellectual property standpoint, hoping that the industry would adopt them. They have not adopted them, but we have seen the rise of other codes, other industry codes, in terms of looking at some of these social and environmental issues. So we see that the things that we do, either other people do the same or other people will do similar. So it is we feel a responsibility to continue down these paths because we do see that it does have an impact, and there's so much work that needs to be done that we welcome all imitations, real, exact, or otherwise, because there's just as my colleagues here said, there's just a lot of work, and so any of these movements forward, competitors or not, that's the kind of competition we'd like to see.
It's sort of interesting to observe people. We now have about 100 alumni of this Ulysses program, all people who have been significantly impacted by the experience, learning to work with our fellow partners, and to think about issues outside, or issues in the developing world. But when we get together and have a conversation of the Ulysses alumni network, it is a bit challenging to, as a group of 100 alumni out of 10,000 partners in our organization, to determine how we what our role is and function as a network. And to some degree, we've boiled it down to the old maxim about thinking globally and acting locally. And I think our partners that I've worked with have been able to do that in local practices or national practices, to take this concept of responsibility, responsible leadership, and to impact their partners in their local marketplace, and act as I am involved serving global companies to make sure that I'm thoughtful about how I interact with my partners and my partner firms to assure that we deliver a quality delivery for our clients. So it's interesting to observe the degree to which our alumni have been able to change the world.
Okay. As I mentioned, at the beginning, we didn't know almost anything about this, the low-income sector, and I'm talking about 8-9 years ago. Obviously, somebody was serving these families, and they were our main competitors in the cement industry in Mexico. But our decision at the beginning was how to develop a commercial initiative in order to get that part of the market. At the beginning, that was the main driver for our initiative. When we made the phase of exploration, and we found these learnings for us, we designed this integral solution for the families, and our competitors right now in the cement industry are operating a kind of solution of like ours. They are offering 2 or 3 components, for example, technical advisory, delivering to where the house is been building, 2 or 3 solutions through the retailers, not directly. And for us has been a very good initiative in order to have a presence in the low-income segment. In fact, we are getting more market share and more, how you say, recordación, market share, and okay. It's a better face for our public and our customers. But As we said, our competitors in this field is not the cement producers, are not them. For us is who are solving the daily needs for these people. And daily needs are for food, education, how you say, when they have fun, entertainment, etc. Because they only have 100 pesos, 10 to $15 daily per family, and they are spending that money in everything, but not always in education, food, and housing. So we have to impact their conscience in order to spend the money in the very basic needs, and the best thing is a business for us.
I'm going to read out a question here verbatim. So it says here regarding Starbucks, being a publicly traded company of which your responsibility is to return the highest profit to your shareholder, do you ever get pushback on costly environmental and social initiatives? And if so, how do you react? So it says, how do you convince your shareholders of your long-term environmental and social initiatives when they're thinking about short-term profits?
Always a good question. We have, I've been at the company for 12 years, and it's been a time of always upward growth. So that's a very happy thing for a company. We generally have very enthusiastic and satisfied shareholders, and although one of the reasons that we're successful is that we pay attention to, as Howard Schultz says, everything matters. And so you have to pay attention to costs, you have to pay attention to, and that cost, I mean, recently we took a price increase on our beverages because we were raising salaries for our baristas. And so you're always balancing all these things, but our shareholders are concerned about these issues too. And when we had our shareholders meeting a couple of years ago, I remember there was only time for 10 questions. We have very enthusiastic shareholder meetings. Thousands of people come. I mean, we have tickets for our shareholders meetings. It's amazing. But out of the 10 questions, 6 were about social responsibility issues. So our shareholders are quite satisfied. Maybe if they weren't doing so well financially, we would get more financial questions. But we have shareholders that really care about these issues, and I'd like to think that the people who buy our stock enjoy not only the increase in the stock value, but also enjoy being associated with a company with values. So I don't mean to minimize that costs aren't important, but I think that the values that the company has are important to the shareholders too. And we remain mindful of Milton Friedman and his comments about returning the optimal shareholder price, but we think some of that shareholder value comes in the form of the good that we do as a company, and that builds our reputation, and that supports that share price. So they're all together.
Question there.
Well, Starbucks has stores in 38 countries, and initially, after we were in the North American market, we went to the Asian market, and it wasn't until later that we went to the Latin American market where we began to deal with the pricing issue that you're referencing. We consider Starbucks coffee an affordable luxury in any country, and the pricing structure has been pretty much to maintain those prices. Of course, we have to be somewhat sensitive to the local environment, but basically our prices are a combination of product, service, rent, all those benefits. I mean, even in other countries outside of the U.S., partners are getting stock options, so that price is not there isn't a way that you can really reduce it to regular local prices, because we're bringing along a lot of our Western expenses in those prices. So basically, the pricing structure has pretty much held constant across all those markets, and people have said we couldn't be successful with that kind of strategy, but so far it has been pretty successful, and maybe that's only because we've chosen to go to places where we thought that would hold up. We have yet to enter India, but certainly that's on our radar screen. We also find that a lot of our customers in many of these countries are a mix of both the people who are local and the people who travel there. So that the people coming into the stores have a variety of incomes. So it's
Hi, I just first of all wanted to thank the panel for sharing their perspectives and experience working with sustainability at your respective companies. I had some general questions, two of them actually. The first is, what do you think are the biggest impediments for more companies to pursue sustainability? For example, do you think there is an unhealthy focus on short-term profitability, particularly in the United States? And my second question is, what advice would you give to someone in middle management to encourage the companies where they work to pursue more sustainability projects or focus on sustainability?
While not a public company, PricewaterhouseCoopers is a private partnership, and I think what will bring sustainability to the table is building more awareness amongst our partners as to the importance of the network of firms, gaining more perspective about what our stakeholders require of us, and that's sort of an ongoing dialogue that is sort of building in its resonance and discussions at our firm. And I guess I would also add that I would observe that in the PricewaterhouseCoopers world, sustainability is higher on the agenda in Europe, where it is more commonly considered as a part of the the elements of managing stakeholders in the business environment there. From a perspective of a middle management person, I think there's opportunity